Level 500, yeah. Jesus, Scarlet. That's insane. The upcoming twins, I'm saying twins. They're not twins, right? The upcoming Gal Girls is gonna be intense. Our skill books are not safe. How did 2B and A2 perform? 2B did fairly decent. 2B had 4 bosses that you could actually take advantage of her, which is actually pretty good. And A2 is, yeah, dog ass. Yeah, don't bother with A2. But 2B had 4 bosses where you could actually use her and take advantage of what she is. For Mace and Material H, you can make her as a tank basically, and just like because Mace and Material H has a attack that targets the highest attack damage. You could make it so you're not bringing a healer or anything, so that's what makes it pretty good. For Obelisk and Rebuild Cucumber, 2B is like, she can be a good DPS because she is fire against wind enemies. So I would say she actually was pretty good this UR. And if this is gonna keep up where they're gonna constantly target like the highest attack, 2B is actually really good. 2B is like much more than like what we're expecting actually. Because yeah, it's just because there's, if the boss continuously starts having mechanics that targets highest attack, she ends up being crucial because you can be very offensive without like compromising damage. 2B is actually way bigger than what we're expecting. A2, I've mentioned this on my A2 review. I've mentioned this in like other situations too. I've said it time and time again on stream. There's just no content right now that is like really good for A2. And like I said, if you go back to my A2 VOD, I said it there. It's not that rocket launchers are bad, and the reason why she is not that good is because there's no content that supports where their strengths are. So that's why it's unfortunate that it happened this way, because we really thought that we could actually use A2. I thought like, oh my god, finally shift up with Nihilister, we can finally use A2 to her fullest. No, unfortunately. Yeah, so like I think the Blacksmith, it was there, but and it was good, but it's just, it was like a one-time thing, I guess. I mean, obviously, you know, again, like I said, it's gonna be really based on the content. But look where we are going though. If you look at the trend, if you saw the most recent like units, the Naga and Tia combo, it looks like they're gonna be prioritizing core shots too, right? Will likely, I think it would be a waste if you don't. You would be using them against bosses that have core, which I would say, okay, there's like 4 out of 5 bosses have cores in this union raid. Yeah, core is just like such an important piece in this game. Like, it's just like that mechanic is just there, and units that are taking advantage of core damage, look at the top DPSs in this game: Modernia, Scarlet, Maxwell, Alice, Snow White. There's Summer Anise too, but I think Summer Anise is more of an exception, right? And they're the top DPS. Guillotine also, right? It's just that. And there's gonna be units, Naga and Tia, who are going to be core damage bonus. Damage dealt when attacking to core increased by 40% for 5 seconds. And there's an additional one here, 85% additional. I would assume it's probably additive to the core. So when our core shot, majority of the units are 200%, except for SMGs. I'm looking at them now. But SMGs are kind of balanced to have 250% damage instead. But majority of the other units, Snow White and Alice and everything like that, their core damage is 200%. So I would assume it's going to be additive. So it's not going to be like, if it's 85%, it's not going to be 200 plus 85% of 200, which is like 160. It's not going to be 360. It's going to be 200 plus 85. So it's going to be 285. That's how I would imagine what those buffs will do. They will be additive to the core. And so that's why like shotgun is also kind of really bad right now. Sugar might be interesting, but like yeah, it's gonna be hard to cope with sugar, right? Like, and because she does have increase in hit rate. I went on tangent, but that's also why rocket launchers are kind of really bad right now, because the parts are mostly short-lived. Either there's almost like no parts where they live for a long time in content other than solo raid. That's kind of like what they expect us to deal with on these boss. I mean, to be fair, it does make sense to a certain degree, because some of the parts actually have a mechanic behind them. For example, like for Nihilister, if you destroy the Vulcans, it will prevent her from constantly shooting. You know, while she's walking towards us, she's gonna use her Vulcan, right? If you destroy those Vulcans, then you're pretty much safe. You could run Scarlet as long as you can keep like your cover alive. You can run Scarlet without any healer. So that's the thing about, like, there's a dilemma in the design, because you want to put parts in there to force people to kind of like, okay, do you want to destroy the parts immediately so that you don't have to deal with that mechanic anymore? Or do you want to try to pad damage, maybe like time your Pierce Burst, like your Maxwell and Snow White, wait for them to burst so that pad extra damage. And yeah, that's the thing. So I could see why they would keep the parts health lower, just so that to kind of put that players into that kind of decision. But yeah, I feel like it's a lost opportunity with these rocket launcher contents, right? Like, it's just, there's just no parts that are surviving. Does elemental damage have diminishing returns, or it's great to get 4 lines for it? It's fine to get 4 lines of it. If there's any stat that is pretty much like no downside for majority of the characters, it would be elemental damage. Right now, with all the characters that are out, there is not one character that is just like, oh, it's super detrimental. So like, to give you an example, right, 2B for example is attack percentage is super low, and the main reason, let me give you an example here. So 2B has 2.1 mil HP here, right? 2.1 mil HP, and my skill is at level 7 is 5.32% of my HP, including HP increases here, 8% plus 17.32 plus 49.88, 75% total max HP increase. With just 2B alone, after she bursts 3 times, she would have 3.6 mil HP, right? And then multiply that by 0.0532, which is her skill 2 at level 7 right now. So 196,000. So that is 196,000 increase in attack power after all the attack percentage calculations are there. And then I have 50,000 attack. So this has 50,000 attack on my 2B. So divided by 50,000 attack, that's essentially 392% attack. So my 2B, who is LB0 at level 336, with her skills alone, she is getting an equivalent of 392% attack. Your overload gears, your attack is 11%. So to put that in perspective, 50,000 times 11.81, it's 5,000. So you're comparing an overload that increases you about 6,000, 5.9,000 attack. Meanwhile, her skills give her 196,000. So this is one of the reasons that I want to point out why attack percentage is pretty much negligible on 2B. So that's why it's better to just aim for elemental damage for 2B. I know I went like in a lot of tangents there, but I feel like I talked about a lot of what, you know, why 2B is good, why A2 is bad, shifts of decisions right now, what's the metas going. It's pretty interesting right now. With Naga and Tia, it's just gonna reinforce that meta of like core shooters. You know what would be funny though? They start releasing units that have like high HP parts where rocket launchers are gonna be good after this. It's hard to balance. I can see why. Because when the enemies have like multiple parts and you try to group them up, like those parts are close to each other, it's so easy to just overshoot like the damage that they will provide. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, like, for example, Snow White and Maxwell and Alice are also strong with those spears. So if they put like a lot of those things together, they will also deal so much damage. The only way I could see it is, I think if they want to rebalance rocket launchers to be more effective, number one, I know rocket launchers have this stat that increases their explosion rages. This is a pretty much currently right now almost a useless stat because the explosion rages increase is bad. And you know how bad it is? It's bad that even if with these skills leveled up, they still have lower range than A2 without bursting. So without this additional increase in explosion rages, like A2, just A2 normal default thing, default auto attacking without any burst effect, and then like a plus with like not max skill 1, I didn't really try it, but like a leveled up skill 1 with max stacks, A2 still has bigger range. And so that really exposes how flawed the initial rocket launchers are. I feel like I don't know what they were really thinking about them. So the way I could think of it is, one, I think instead of just increasing explosion rages, if they want to rework rocket launchers, and I think they really should, and I hope that this will come alongside with like the macro spam thing fix that they're planning to do, if they're ever gonna plan to do it. But I don't know what they're really doing about it. How I kind of see it is, yeah, these additional explosion damage is kind of useless right now for a lot of rocket launchers. It doesn't feel worth to increase their levels right now. Now it's different for A2, right? Because like for A2, it does increase not only the range, but it's also increasing the charge damage. So I feel like, personally, I think it's unfair that A2 got that kind of kit and then like everyone else in the rocket launchers are kind of scuffed. That's the flaw with rocket launchers right now. It is what it is. But anyways, yeah, those are kind of like my kind of quick thoughts right now on some parts of the mechanics and things in this game.